Hello, my name is Yatta, and welcome to Yattakucha. And this is the presentation. Yes. Thank you. So for context, for people who don't know, I studied abroad to the United Kingdom and in a bunch of other places, well, not a bunch of other places, a couple other places. And I wanted to make a presentation about my experience documenting everything that I did. So yes, by the way, in this background is a bunch of little things that I made just for funsies. Okay, Boston. I had an 8-hour layover in Boston before I got to London. Buildings are cool. I'm obviously a civil engineer, but for the record, I studied abroad for 3 classes: structural engineering, a city planning class, and then also a environmental policy class. That's just for context as what I'm doing there. And then the Big Dig. The Big Dig is the best thing in Boston, and I'll tell you why. It's because Atlanta should take notes. Do you guys know what the Big Dig is? You know what the Big Dig is. I know you know. Do you know? No. So, a lot of American cities cut their cities in half using a giant highway, and then it kind of broke the fabric of how people communicate, because they can't walk across unless they go on a little loud bridge and it's obnoxious. So what they did is they dug it underground and covered it up. What? And then that means that the city is now connected again. I walked across the Big Dig. It was so awesome. More Boston. This is just a bunch of Boston stuff. I think I sent this to you, Sammy. It's Paul Revere's house. It's Paul Revere's house in Boston. I went to Paul Revere's house, and I went to a church.
Yeah, you did send me that.
And then I got a Boston donut, or cream donut. I didn't like it. It was too creamy for me. Cream is not my thing. Boston's, honestly, it felt like a European city. That's true. I know people said that in the past. That's true. As someone who went to a European city directly afterwards, it felt like a European city. Now, I've started flying, and this is the transient experience. I never flew time zones before this. Well, I've flown to Japan, but that was in the day. I flew at night, so I saw the sun. I thought that was really cool. Never done that before. That was a cool experience. And then you could see the suburbs coming in. My first hours in London. Yay! I was really tired. I went to this cafe, and the story of this cafe is I walked in, and I was like, okay, oh, it looks like the counter's at the back. So I waltzed my way in, and I was like, hey, can I have? And then they're just looking at me like, what did you just do? Can you sit down? And I'm like, okay, because it was apparently a sit-down restaurant. I thought it was like a cafe. It said the cafe. I just bolts my way in, and I was supposed to wait to sit down, and all the waitresses were all nervous because I just dominated. Exactly. And then I fell asleep in the cafe. Yes. And then they didn't touch me or do anything to me. They just kind of looked at me on the side and be like, what is this kid? And then I went to the the British Library to study, because I had classes, I remember. I had a couple weeks of classes before this already, just to get the baseline of the content that I needed before I was in study abroad, because my study abroad was field trip oriented. So there was a really long line, and I got in, and then I fell asleep. And then I took a picture of the crisps because I was excited to see crisps. I don't know why I took a picture of lotion and put it in here, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, there's lotion in here too. And then I bought lotion.
People use lotion?
Yes! And then this is a very consistent theme throughout this presentation, is that I wandered quite a lot, actually. Brianna, this is something that you like to do, right? Yeah, exploring is what you call it. I call it wandering. Yes.
Exploring. I love exploring and wandering and going on adventures and side quests.
Funny story about this picture. When I took it, I was crossing right next to someone who was saying I'm f***ing broke.
This video turns into an hour-long rant about British.
This is just a brief. One more British person story. I was walking down the road, but there's this family of a boy and a girl, and they're all singing little songs, humming, yeah, 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 yeah. And they're it was really cute. And then this guy walked by and was "Oi, shut up." I just experienced the most. But it was pretty too. I don't want to just make fun of the British. It was pretty. And then I wandered some more with friends, which, by the way, my most notable thing I like to say about London is that it's modern architecture. Obviously it's older architecture is pretty, because that's your expectation. However, this is a more new building, and it looks it's more honest. You can see the windows more propping out, and this is a consistent theme. And I also it allowed me to see the structural elements a lot more clearly, which was important as I was taking a structures class. So that's something that really good props to London. It's not a lot more skyscrapers than I expected. By the way, This was just the train station and hotel that was just next to my like hostel, or at least within the couple blocks that I used.
More architecture like that here.
It was just casually there. Like that's just what they used. London Underground, which I love this. Checking on Tiddles while you check out the view, and it's a cat. They named their cat Tiddles. That's my last British making fun of British people.
Because they wouldn't put Tiddle.
What would it be like a generic American cat name in an ad?
Like literally anything, but not Tiddle.
And then I saw the thing that's very symbolic of London, Westminster Abbey. That's where people get married. And I went there, and these are right here. These are flying buttresses, and the flying buttresses transfer the load from the larger centerpiece and into these spires where it can be more evenly distributed, so it stays structurally sound. And then London Eye, which I didn't actually go on it because I went to something better. Fun fact: the Thames is right perpendicular, parallel to the London Eye. So how it stays up is that you have, when the wind is blowing towards it, you use these big little beams for compression, so it stays like this. And when the wind's going the other way, you use these little cables that are in tension when the wind's blowing like this. So it's either pushing it back or pushing it in. And
On one side.
yeah, so it's only on one side because the other side's a river. Selfies. Tower Bridge, not London Bridge. Tower Bridge. London Bridge is literally just a random bridge.
It's not London Bridge.
It's not London Bridge.
Is London Bridge lame?
London Bridge is actually really lame. And then I went to an Indian restaurant. Their naan was really good. Their spicy chicken, I don't know, it's like spicy chicken curry. And then they charged me for water. And I was like, God damn it. They charged for water in a lot of places in Europe, and I don't like that. I like my free water. Look, you might get free healthcare, but I get free water in the U.S., so the United States is better. We have priorities. This was the back side of an elevator, by the way. You can see it's like an exposed elevator, and there's a bunch of cool architecture right here. The skyscrapers are cooler. That really, like, I knew like the normal buildings were cooler because like it was Europe, but like the skyscrapers were cooler. So props to the British for that. This is my favorite structure, and you know why? Because let's just imagine a rectangular box, right? So now there's a train running right directly underneath it. How does the foundation keep it up? So what they did is that this like little like thing here, that's underneath this building, and this is the structural equivalent of a bridge. Because this is on both this like each like east and west or whatever cardinal direction, like this is on both sides. So essentially, it's just a giant bridge with like really thick that upwards, and that's why there's this big arch here, because it needs to distribute the loads to like end up going to the sides instead of just down at each point. So like distributes it outwards. That's what an arch does. Distributes it outwards. So I thought that was really cool because there's a train going underneath, and that's why they can't, as I said earlier, that's why they can't just have the foundation everywhere go down. Oh, and then I tried a British McDonald's.
Is it better than normal McDonald's?
I haven't had McDonald's in years, so I can't say for certain. How it was a chicken sandwich, so maybe.
It's like a squatty bar.
I mean, yeah.
It looks like the ads.
I went to St. Paul's Cathedral. I have really crappy pictures because I didn't want to take too many inside because I said no taking photos. I was like the only person who respected that. I also went to the top and I took photos up there because, of course, I would take photos at the top. I like being a cat and going up to the top of buildings and taking photos up there because it's really fun. This is the Wobbly Bridge. This is a sideways suspension bridge, right? So it ends up having a frequency and for something related. And since it's sideways, it has a lateral frequency. So when you walk on it like this, you'd end up like the walking speed of an average person was about the building's natural frequency. So then it would just start shaking back and forth because like normally a building with the frequency would go like this, but still sideways it was going like this. So it ended up shaking, and then the more people would walk, they would try to counteract it, and then I'll make it wobble even more, and then make it. And then they had to spend millions of dollars installing this, which if you feel your finger right there, which I did, you can actually feel the movements of restricting or like counteracting the frequency. Really fun.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. It's the Shard, which is the better building than, because I went up to the very tallest building in London, and then I wandered, and they hate cyclists because apparently a bird is a cyclist, or a bird is a park user. Respect all park users, including birds.
Park users.
And I walked into a convenience store, and then there was this girl who was like, "Hey, I'm a bit lost." I'm like, "Don't ask me." There we go. American food store.
Oh my god.
The flags go crazy.
We got LaCroix, which I know LaCroix is not French. I'm not stupid, but I didn't think it was like an American thing. Like I knew it was American, like it was processed and managed in the U.S., but like I didn't know it was like culturally American. Because I drink a lot of LaCroix. It was like an entire row of LaCroix, and I bought LaCroix because I'm like, okay, why? If I'm like viewing and taking a bunch of pictures of your shop, I might as well buy something. They also had kind of more disgusting stuff like edible whipped cream out of a can.
Imagine being a British middle schooler having a ball in this store.
The guy managing it was some Indian dude. Which, by the way, there was a lot of South Asians in the UK. Like, I think it's like a solid 20% of London.
Did I speak with it in
I think it was like a British. It was like a British Indian accent.
interesting?
I was like that's like it's like a sub accent of British. And like this is kind of unrelated, but when I would go to a restaurant, like even like a more casual restaurant, like I went to a Weatherspoons, which is later in this presentation, they would just half of their food would be like normal British food, like English breakfast, and then another half would be like curry. It's like it was just integrated into the UK, like just South Asian culture, like on a mainstream level, like and there's Indian restaurants everywhere. Partying, I went clubbing in the UK.
Is that beans?
Okay. Everyone keeps questioning this picture. Okay, for one, this is a veggie sausage.
It looks like British food.
This is the Weatherspoons I went to that also had like half Indian food on the menu. Just throwing it out there. And the Weatherspoons like the British version of a Denny's. I went on the top of the double-decker bus on the way there, and I went to a club, and then the club was really boring. And I'm like, I just don't think I'm a clubbing person. You can't talk to the person in front of you. I went to the London Wetland Centre, which is they're trying to restore wetland because 90% of the wetlands in the world are going away because of agriculture and other types of living standard stuff.
London has wetlands.
Well, they did, and I tried fish and chips there. And yes, it has peas. Everyone keeps commenting, oh, the fish and chips have peas. Yes, they do. That's a British thing. It was kind of cool, like the birds that will like migrate from Africa to the wetland, just specifically because they started reconnecting these like old,
Has African birds?
apparently, like part of their migration route.
Colonized African birds.
No. And then I wandered a bit more. I thought this picture was cool. And I went to Buckingham Palace. You asked me about that.
It did.
You did ask me about that.
See Charles?
No, I did not see King Charles. Cat.
Cat.
Yes. Piccadilly Circus plus wandering, as you can read. And there was also a Chinatown there. And I went, and there was a gay bar in Chinatown.
They're so natural.
I want to go to the gay bar.
I know. This was probably my favorite wandering session, to be honest, was Piccadilly Circus and the surrounding areas. My last full day in London, I went to the Isle of Dogs. That's what this is called. A lot of good buildings. And then I walked under the River Thames. And then I walked into Greenwich Park, and that's where I got this tea. I don't know why I put a picture of food in here. I don't know what I was thinking there. This was Greenwich Park, which is, that's where, like, Greenwich time. Like, I went to the building that was, like, yeah. So,
Time was invented.
this was the Isle of Dogs across the River Thames, and it looked like Wizard of Oz. I'm like, that's really so pretty. Train ride, and then I was editing my podcast with Ronald on the train ride. I do have a podcast. Check out my personal channel, Yatta, for the After Dark podcast. It's not on Spotify. It's only on YouTube. But the train ride was really cool because you can see, like, this was just a castle, just casually. And then Edinburgh was the coolest place I think I went to, or in terms of, like, surprise factor. Because everywhere I kind of knew what to expect. Cause I knew pictures. I'm also into city planning and all that stuff. I did not know I just like, oh, that's just a place on the map that I happen to be going. Sure, why not? I'm going to London, Dublin, and this city called Edinburgh, and then it looked like this, and I'm like, shoo. Edinburgh Castle. I got ice cream. This ice cream was so good. Doesn't compare to anything in the U.S. I loved it. And then the castle was cool. I went to the top, as you can see. I saw the Boston Wall, and I almost walked to the ocean, but then it was too far, and I had to go back. This is what I mean by the verticality, by the way. It's like essentially like, so do you see this is a road up here, and this is a road down here? Like, there's, like, almost 2 levels of road. Navigating, like, you'd have to, like, take a stair up here, and you couldn't drive to, like, up here to here unless you, like, took some really long roundabout route. So it was, like, there's a valley, which is, like, the underground part, and then up here, there's, like, all these shops and stores on the bottom part. Maybe not as much, admittedly, but there is still stuff there. And then the top part is, like, another just layer of, like, shops and stores and stuff. I just thought that was really fascinating. And then I went to Arthur's Seat, which is, like, the Scottish Highlands light that I went to. I didn't actually go to the Scottish Highlands, but this is the closest I got to it. And it was up here, very windy, as you can tell by my hair. And then the Grand Theft Auto devs, I just walked by them by complete coincidence. I didn't even mean to. Grand Theft Auto is a British take on the United States. Did you know that?
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It's British?
It's British.
Rockstar Games is British?
The company's based in the U.S., but the studio that makes GTA is British.
Oh.
Yeah, I wanted to go inside and like ask them when GTA 6 is coming out, but then they were like, no, I don't know. I was too scared. June 4th, bridges.
I love bridges.
I know. Here's the story. So they first built a rail bridge. This is the fourth rail bridge. And this was like in the 1800s. It was an engineering marvel at the time. And on the other side is a suspension bridge that they built like a couple decades later in the early 1900s. However, it couldn't sustain the high amounts of traffic that would start gaining up in like the 1970s, and was starting to wear down and potentially fall over and be really bad. So then they had to build another bridge. They turned that into mostly a pedestrian bridge, and then they built the Queensferry Bridge right here, or Queensferry Crossing, sorry, and that's for roads. So they have a separate bridge for roads, pedestrians, and trains. They were vicious. So here's the story. All right. I was on Incolm Island, and it was nesting season, and all the seagulls were all potched up in here. And I wanted to see a military shelter. And I was like, I saw a sign that said, don't go off the beaten path or something like that. And I did keep on the beaten path. I didn't go off. But then all the seagulls really started looking at me. And I'm like, this is like kind of on edge here, right? So I went inside the military shelter. This is not the military shelter, but I put this picture in here because it's really ominous. And like, it was on Incolm Island. It was a castle on the other side. But it's how I felt the whole time. And this was inside the military shelter right here. And then I noticed if you look really closely, there's baby seagulls. And then the seagulls started really looking at me. So then I walked out, and then the seagulls just started attacking me, and I had to book it. More wandering. Yes, our favorite activity. And then June 6th is the day I got COVID.
You got COVID?
I got COVID.
Scotland?
Yeah. So the United Kingdom has a certain variant of the coronavirus going on. And then someone in my group got very symptomatic, and we all had to get tested. And of course, I was like one of two people who got it. So then I got to get isolated, and I was in a room by myself in the next couple days. I kind of just played Minecraft, didn't have a ton to do, just tried to work on my work, but wasn't very successful with that. A lot of my assignments got delayed and pushed back, and that was a whole experience. I went to a museum, though. I had a mask on. Don't worry.
More ice cream.
Yes, I got more ice cream. I didn't have a mask on for the ice
Ice
cream.
cream looks great.
I love the ice cream. This is the Scottish meal deal. This is part of my dog days, as I described, part of the COVID experience, right? But I love the meal deal. For like £3.50, you can get a meal, a snack, and a drink.
What?
And it was how I survived. Also, part of the meal deal, they had these little sandwiches, and they were shrimp sandwiches, which I love shrimp. So I would eat shrimp sandwiches every day. Edinburgh had the best like selection of meal deals, as you can see on the left. I'm just quickly going by it, but there's all the food. There's shrimp or sushi down there at extra cost, and like poke bowls too. Add that as well. Oh yeah, that was funny. I know that there's like cultural reasons why they're separated, but like to me, I think about it from a technical standpoint, and I think like, okay, if it's like going to California and seeing American strawberries and Californian strawberries, like isn't that like one's inside the other?
Also, why do the ones on the right look so much worse?
I got the Scottish ones, for the record. The British are not good. The Scottish were better. And then June 11th, I went on a tiny plane. This is when I was starting to go to Dublin, by the way. I thought the plane was fascinating. But by the way, my time in Scotland has ended. I got COVID for half of it. Who cares? I'm negative by this point. We're in Dublin now. I arrived in Dublin, and I took a picture of my head. That was my like area. It was actually pretty nice. By the way, Dublin overall rating, loved the visit. They smoked a lot there, though. I was like, past 7 p.m., everywhere just smelled like tobacco. And I'm like, oh my.
Typo on your PowerPoint.
Oh my gosh. You know, the worst part is that that was pointed out to me last night, and I forgot to fix it. Yes, there was a typo. Arrival in Dubin. I walked to the dock, and I took a picture every single little stopping point along the way. And you can see it slowly getting darker as I got night. In that picture, like I know it's like kind of small, especially on the video, but it's like, it was really pretty. I went to Trinity College, and that bird is obnoxious. I hate that bird. He thinks he's dominating the place. And then the Trinity College, it was cool. I studied at an actual college this time. I didn't study in a hostel like Edinburgh and London. I just studied in the hostel. But in Ireland, I actually went to a college, which is cool. And I even took like a train there and the streetcar there and everything. I felt like such a commuter, especially because my schoolwork is starting to pile up by this point. I went to Malahide. The beach was kind of sad, to be honest. Although I liked the beach. I skipped rocks there with my friends. And then the castle was cool. And then the butterfly garden was really pretty. I love the butterfly garden. Malahide like northern of Dublin. It's like a suburb of Dublin. Howth, which is like a peninsula north of Dublin, which I went to and I hiked across it. This was a really fun picture I took. The beach was freaking gorgeous. It was like, holy crap. And then here's a fun picture. So I started getting hives at this point. And I thought maybe if I covered myself from the sun, they would be less likely to pop up. I don't know. I didn't know what I had at the point. So June 17th, this was the day before I had a paper and a midterm the next morning, and I hadn't done anything for it. So I had to write an entire paper because my partner wasn't helping me, so I had to do it all myself. And then I studied for a midterm, and this picture was taken while I had an earbud in my ear, like having my professor like do a review session while I was traveling back to my hostel so I can then finish the paper at the hostel.
Wow, you were full commuter.
And then I did my exams and did turn the paper, and it was okay. But I just wanted some more, took some pictures, some castles. I could have gone in, but I didn't. European game store, I was nerding out about this. None of you guys probably don't know this. However, this Super Nintendo looks different because in Europe it's designed differently. In the United States, it's a lot more purple. The prices were honestly fair enough, but wasn't like a bargain deal for me to buy anything. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna. My last full day in Dublin, I went to Phoenix Park, saw some ducks. I love the ducks. And then this was a museum, the National Museum of Ireland. It was really sad, to be honest with you. Because the entire thing, or at least the war section that I mostly explored, was just the British invaded us in 1600 something. And then the British murdered a lot of us because of religious differences. I'm like, oh. And then the 1900s, oh yeah, we made the IRA to go against the British. And then they suppressed us. And then they came back during World War I, and then we managed to get through. And now we're an independent country. And then I'm like, okay, what after this? And they're like, nothing. It was just the British suck. I'm like, yeah. I think we learned that. And then I went to Amsterdam. This is my favorite part. By this point, I already finished all my finals and stuff and schoolwork related stuff. Yeah.
How'd you get Amsterdam by yourself?
Cycling. This is the most important part of my trip, potentially to me, because I went on a bicycle in Amsterdam. Because Amsterdam's a biking city. As you can see, Amsterdam in a nutshell. I wanted to go to Starbucks to get free water because I was tired of paying for water. And 3 minutes to bike, 30 minutes to drive. So I rented a bike, and here's the thing. So they have bike lanes everywhere. I knew they have everywhere in the city. I already knew that. However, you can bike to the middle of nowhere in a park. You can bike under a tunnel, bike in a business district. This is a car shop. You can bike to the car shop. How ironic is that? Think about that for a second.
Well, it makes more sense because if you want to buy a car, if you don't have one.
That is true. They had cycling. If there was a road, there was a bicycle lane. Everywhere. Everywhere. And I just kind of biked around. Instead of wandering, I did it on a bike. That's why it was so great. This was how they parked in the Netherlands. This was casual parking. US, you have big malls with parking lots everywhere. You have big bike racks. And by the way, now while there were some bike racks in there, what you mostly do is you park your bike, put the kickstand up, and then just put the lock, attach it to the wheel and the frame, and just leave it there. If I did that in the US, my bike would get stolen. Now, I do want to say one thing about Amsterdam's cycling infrastructure. Something I noted is that it was so dominant that if I wanted to walk somewhere, it actually took some time. Because now it was nowhere near as bad as the United States. However, in Amsterdam, it was more this might be a private residence, every half building. It was able to get away with that because, everyone bikes, so they'll be able to get to my shop. It just was, I did prefer walking in London because of that. Because if I didn't have a bike, and the next day I got super sore after being on a certain bike ride I'll tell you about in a second. So I had to walk everywhere, and I'm like, honestly, this is slightly annoying. So I will say that as something that was very interesting because it's so bicycle dependent. If you don't have a bike, it like almost felt. Again, nowhere near as bad as the United States, but yeah. I biked 100 kilometers in one day, which for context is 62 miles. And the reason why, there was a flower field that I wanted to go to. And it was really far away because the mainstream ones in Amsterdam were all touristy and cost a bunch of money. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to see a real one. I went there, and it was all harvested. So that was sad. This is just rural Netherlands.
That's cool.
Awesome.
So I biked into the rural Netherlands in one trip. And it was really, I made a mistake doing it on a Dutch bicycle because it has no gears and is really heavy. So I got really sore, and I was in the middle of the rural Netherlands where I took this picture. I was really freaking sore. When I went to that tulip field that was harvested, it was like 8 o'clock by this point. My phone was at 6%, and I'm like, crap, and I'm really sore. So I can't go back on the same bike ride. So I went to the nearest train station that I looked up on my phone while I was almost dying. And I'm like, I bike here. It was kind of like a solid like 20, 30 minutes to bike there. And I'm like, whatever. It's like 9 o'clock by this point. My mom called me, and I'm like, hi, I'm about to pick up at the train station. Like, okay, cool, bye. And then the train never came. And I quickly looked it up on my phone with about like only a couple percentages left, and I realized that the train was never going to come. And I'm like, crap, I need to go to a more main train station because it was a weekend. So I had to bike to Haarlem. That's the one picture I took there. Now, since I was in Haarlem, what the story is that essentially since my phone was on 6%, it was 11 o'clock, and I didn't know if the trains were running anymore in Haarlem, and I was just biking. So what I did is when I was biking from that train station, I'm like, I'm just going to bike just straight, and I saw the road signs. I had to follow the road signs when my phone was dying, and I'm just like, I'm just going to bike here, hope I make it in time before the train shuts down at midnight. And I made it about like, I think 10:30, 11. And then when I made it to the train station, I fell off my bike. And then this girl was like, oh, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then they spoke to me in Dutch. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying. And I just biked away into the train station. She talked to me in English at first. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know English. Like I said, yeah. And then she said something in Dutch and I said, yeah. Because I don't want to admit the fee. I don't want to admit the fee. So I just bike away.
You only admitted the fee when you fell off the bike.
Okay, I didn't know.
So he's just abandoned this nice.
I went to Amsterdam, and I biked back to my hostel in Amsterdam. And let me tell you, that city is a party city because, oh my God, I thought they were going to be kind of quiet because Harlem was a little quieter, but lights everywhere. The club music was going like, that was the tempo. And I was just biking through it all, and I'm like, I just soaked it in. That was one of the greatest memories of my life. Holy hell. The next day, I was extremely sore. My hostel mates woke me up at 4 a.m. because they thought shining a phone in my face was funny. I went to a museum, and this is a dollhouse. It's really pretty. And big boat, really cool. I thought the museum was nice. It was like, I can't pronounce it. It was like Rejks. I'm probably spelling that wrong. I don't know Dutch at all. Dutch, like the language looks like a keyboard spam. And then I started to fly back home. And then I got my Switch 2 when I came home. Yes. Yeah,